Okay, so in this presentation I'm going to talk about conditionals, and this is for the course English Language 5. So if you remember in class we were discussing the different types of conditionals, and here, well, first of all I'm going to give an introduction to the different types of conditionals and also some other words to express or to introduce a condition. So as you remember, there are different types of conditionals in English, and we can also use other expressions besides if. So you know that there are different types like zero, first, second, and third, and we're going to cover them starting in the next slide. So for example, we can start by describing zero conditional. We usually use this conditional to talk about something that is a general truth or fact, so it has similar meaning to the expression every time. For example, if you own a car, comma, you also have to pay for insurance and registration every year. So this is something you have to do every time. And here you have a chart that explains the structure of zero conditional. So if present tense plus present tense. For example, if you heat water to 100 degrees Celsius, it boils, or you can just change the order of the items, and the result will be the same. So water boils if you heat it to 100 degrees Celsius. So the second type of conditional I would like to talk about is first conditional. So we usually use it to talk about something we feel is a probable future result. For example, here the phrase in yellow says, if you leave your money in the bank, and the result will be that you will not earn any interest, or it may also lose value over time. So the first part in yellow is in present, and the second part, well, you can use future or some other modal verbs such as might or may or could or even going to. And the examples are, if I invest my money, it will grow, or my money will grow if I invest it. So here, remember that you can change the expression. For example, the modal verb will, and you can say my money could grow if I invested, or my money might grow if I invested. Of course, it will have a different meaning, but you can also do that. The next type of conditional is called second conditional, and we usually use it to talk about imaginary, impossible, or unlikely situations in the present or future. Even though we use past tense, it doesn't refer to the past, okay? So this is something that you're imagining. So if I went traveling, I wouldn't have any money left over. So here, as you can see, some of the examples are compared to the examples in the previous slide. If I invested my money, it would grow. So my money would grow if I invested it. So this is something, again, that you are imagining. So of course you can use would, might, could, or any other modal verb that refers to the past. Okay, but remember, the past tense does not refer to the past tense itself, and actually we use the same structure in Spanish. Now the next type of conditional I would like to talk about is the one known as third conditional, and this one describes hypothetical situations in the past, and we use it to imagine the result of something that did not happen. So this is something that we cannot change. So the example goes like this: if I had bought a second-hand car, I wouldn't have taken out this big bank loan. So this person bought the new car, and actually he did take out a bank loan. So this is like what he's trying to imagine, but there's nothing that this person can do. And we can use it, this is a mixture of past perfect, as in if I had bought a second car, and then the second part we use would or would not have plus participle. And the examples are, if you'd asked me, I would have done it, or I would have done it if you had asked me. So now we can talk about some other words to introduce a condition. Here we have a few that we covered in class and some others that may be new. So here we have the two words when and as soon as. So we can usually use them instead of if to show that something is more likely. For example, I will give you a ride into town if I finish my work in time. So I'm not really sure if I can give you uh, a, a ride, but if we use, for example, when or as soon as, that sounds, let's say, more likely. So I will give you a ride into town when or as soon as I finish this work or this assignment. So I will give you a ride for sure. So we're just replacing if with when or as soon as. Another expression we can use is unless. So we usually use it to show a negative condition with a similar meaning to the expression if not. For example, you won't earn much interest unless you invest it properly. So if you don't invest it properly, you won't earn much interest. So this is what you're saying with if not. And another example can be, well, I'll order the food unless you give me a call. So if you don't give me a call, I'll go ahead and do that. We can also use expressions such as provided, providing that, and as long as. So these phrases can be used instead of if for emphasis. Well, I would like to say that provide and providing that are more common in written English than in spoken English. For example, we can say you won't lose any money provided or providing that you think of it as a long term investment. So you won't lose any money if you think of it as a long term investment. We can also use the expression as long as. So as long as you get a second-hand car, you should still be able to invest some money. So if you get or if you buy a second-hand car, you should be still able to invest some money. So there was another expression that I'm going to describe in the next slide. This one right here. So if you remember it, if it wasn't for, actually we use the same expression in Spanish. And it has some different variations. For example, we can say if it wasn't for or if it weren't for, plus a noun phrase, to say that the situation depends on another situation, person, or thing. For example, if it wasn't or if it weren't for the car, I would have no money worries now. So the car is the reason for my worries. Or we can express the same idea, but now in the past. So now we can use the expression if it hadn't been for to talk about something in the past. So if it hadn't been for your advice, I would have made the wrong decision. So here we have, let's say, two expressions. If it wasn't for or if it weren't for, and if it hadn't been for to talk about the past situation. Well, and the final examples that I would like to describe here are the following. So if you remember them, we discussed them in class. These three types of if sentence that use inversion, that we need to move a few of the elements inside the sentence to make them more formal. So if you look at the first one, if the police had found out, they would have been in trouble. And if we use inversion here, we end up with this sentence, where the police to have found out, they would have been in trouble. And if you look at the second one, if he has stolen, he will have to be punished. So what we can do here, we're going to use should. Should he have stolen, he will have to be punished. Remember that the phrases in light blue they may sound a little bit more formal, and actually that's the idea. And the last one, if I had known, I would have broken up with him before. So now we're going to use the expression had. Here we're using the third conditional. So now the final result is had I known, I would have broken up with him before. So here, as a summary, we have all different types of conditionals and also some expressions that we can use instead of if.